First, we're gonna start with Mika Leval, which is the other guy you hear here, and he is gonna talk about his game that he's developing at the moment. Please knock on my door, which is gonna be this type of game diary about that, and I'm gonna let him talk about what that's gonna include and all that. After that, we're gonna go straight into the game called Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
Yep,
Um, but
it's gonna be a
let's.
blast. Pun
Oh, dude.
intended.
Yeah. So let's start with your part, I guess.
Yep. Yeah. So
I'm just.
unfortunately, I don't have a webcam, so you're gonna have to make do with handsome Tobias.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Um,
be removed for now, though. When we play the game.
yeah. So as Tobias said, I'm Michael Lavall, and I'm a Swedish game developer based in Karlshamn, which is basically in the southern parts of Sweden. For those of you who don't know. And I'm currently working on a title called Please Knock on My Door, which is a social commentary game dealing with issues surrounding mental health. And in addition to working with games, I'm currently a part-time mentor at a Swedish university. So um, I have I have spent some time thinking about what this, I guess you could call it segment, the dev diary part of your stream, what that's going to be about. Um, so what I've come up with so far is that I'm going to start off with a part that I'd like to call the weekly thoughts. So this will be a recurring segment on Tobias's channel. So and I won't start with some weekly thoughts, just something that's perhaps happened or something that's been going on, some ideas that I've had up until the stream. So today I'd like to talk about just a little bit more what is Please Knock on My Door? What does it mean that it's a social commentary? For some of you, that might be an unfamiliar term. And I'm going to talk about the release date, when you can look forward to it, and why I've decided on starting up this dev diary here. So after those weekly thoughts, I'm going to show you some gameplay. I've prepared a build which Tobias will help me to showcase later on. And after that, we will head into some questions. So during the days up until this stream, I asked some questions, or rather, I looked for questions on Twitter. You can find me there at GTLime. And I had some questions sent to me, tweeted to me, and I'm going to answer them at the end. I'm planning for this to take approximately 30 minutes. We've never done anything like this before, so we don't really know. But we're aiming for about 30 minutes, I think, should suffice. I think that'll be good. All right, so I'll just jump straight into the weekly thoughts then. So Please Knock on My Door is a game about depression, loneliness, and phobia. The player will get to walk in the shoes of a person suffering from these issues and try to get through one in-game week in the main character's life. The player is tasked with upholding his everyday routine, including tasks such as going to work, interacting with colleagues, preparing dinner, and keeping a good sleep schedule, of course. The player is free to experiment, and the game doesn't follow a linear path, so every choice the player makes will affect which events occur throughout the game. So now over to the social commentary aspect of it. So a social commentary is a work of art which takes a contemporary human issue and brings its essence into a medium of choice. So the medium can, for example, be writing, which is probably one of the um, more usual mediums, but of course can also be illustrations, films, or even games, of course. So by using games to explore such complicated issues, I hope that we can possibly understand more of what it means to be alive in our current society, and learn more about these different themes. Through games, we might even be able to offer players the ability to explore these issues in a way other mediums have yet to achieve. And this is all very interesting to me. I find contemporary issues very interesting and compelling to work with, um, and especially the themes that I have some kind of personal relationship to, which I will touch on more later on. So over to the release date. Um, So the last information I sent out was that the game was going to be released in the fourth quarter this year. So that's pretty soon, and unfortunately, that's no longer the case. I'm currently looking at the second quarter next year, but that's far from a guarantee. And I'd like to take this opportunity to discuss that, why that's a thing that sometimes happen with games, or for me at least. So there are many reasons for this change, and in hindsight, I think I should have been a little more restricted when it comes to giving out release schedules. I have so far pushed the release date 2 times, this being the third, and of course that takes a toll on me as the developer, and at the same time I realize it might be frustrating for those who are waiting for the game's release. I decided to push the game's release mainly because of changed and added features. The estimated playtime hasn't changed. What's changed is the content. I'm quite harsh when it comes to features I've added, so um, it doesn't matter really how long I worked on something if it doesn't give the result I want, or if I come up with something I think would work better, I just change it. I'm a bit ruthless against myself in that regard. Um, this means that it gets very difficult to estimate timeframes, as I just don't know when and if some features will change or be switched out altogether. Um, I will give at least one example of this later when we go into this week's gameplay showcase. Um, if I remember to do it, otherwise you can just remind me, Tobias.
Yeah.
Um, that's the positive thing about being two people.
Yeah. We also have. I don't know if you can see chat.
Yeah, I can see chat.
Yeah, because I kind of think maybe you should try and answer him in
Oh, cool.
between.
Yeah, so
Uh,
Tobias looking through chat and just give me some
Heads up.
uh, exactly.
Because I think. I mean, I think you lived through it yourself, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually the next point, but I
Yeah.
definitely can see where the commenter is coming from.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who cannot see chat and who will be watching the VOD, a commenter commented that, uh, let's see the entire.
Do you want me to read it or?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I'm not going to mention his name just in
Oh,
case he actually doesn't want that. So he says that as a person living and fighting with depression, I'm weirded out by games trying to touch the subject. Especially since the biggest struggle is that people not living with depression just don't get it.
yeah,
I mean, since we're speaking of issues that can be touched through the medium of gaming. I can mention his name. It's Dragutux that asked that question, or asked more like suggested it.
yeah.
Uh,
So that's actually quite interesting
yeah,
because it touches on the reason why I am making this game. So, um, the the point of making this game is to actually give it to someone who doesn't understand and to help them understand what it is like. Um, I suffered from depression myself about 2 years ago, and making this game became a part of how I escaped it. So, um, yeah, I can actually, if it's okay, I'd like to just head into the next part here because I think what I'm about to say now will actually
yeah,
answer these thoughts by the commenter. So I'll just do that. Um, and yeah, as I am making a game about mental health, I actually often get asked very personal questions when pitching the game idea. And the question most people want answered is, why are you making this specific game? And many of them are actually wondering, like, do you have any personal connections to these subjects? And there are many answers to that question. The first being that for about 2 years ago, as I said before, I was suffering from depression myself, and my way of dealing with it was that I tried to distance myself from what I was feeling, and in order to better understand what was happening at the time, I basically tried to break out of my own toxic habits and my toxic thinking patterns. Um, I did this by analyzing the emotions I had, what was going on in my life, and I put the ideas and thoughts that came out of it into a game prototype. Um, and by playing that prototype, it made it easier for me to understand myself, and soon I started to feel better. So I guess that kind of answers one of the concerns that the game should be genuine. which I really feel that it should be. Um, and to me, I mean, obviously, depression is slightly different depending on who experiences it, because we're all human, we're all different in some way.
Yeah.
Uh, and I feel like if two people were to make a game about depression, those games would be different, and that's okay. All I can say is that I am going to make a game based on my experiences with the subject, and in that regard, I do feel that it's genuine. So after giving this explanation, many people exclaim that I should start a blog of some kind where I can write and share the ideas that go into making this game, because many people seem to find it interesting. The only problem is that for the longest time I really had no real interest in blogging or writing about it, and I mean I decided to make a game in the first place because I feel like that was the optimal way for me to describe these themes. That's why I'm not using text. And I mean, however, the reason why I'm making this game has slowly shifted over the past year from I'm doing it for me, to understand myself better, to doing it for someone else. And what I mean by that is that my hope now is that someone out there who might now be suffering like I was 2 years ago, who might be struggling to explain or understand what's happening to them, will be able to pick up Please Knock on My Door once it's released and give it to a friend saying, hey, I might not be able to put this in words, but this is what's going on. Try it and see if you can make sense of it. I'm not. Do we have more comments or?
Yeah, he wrote a comment. I'm not sure if it's a question. He writes that I, for example, found out that one reason for my depression is being too smart, ironically, and giving way too much emotion thinking about issues.
Yeah,
Um,
I can see how that could be an issue.
yeah,
That's not something I relate to personally, but that doesn't mean that. Of course, it does mean that it isn't legit or true. And I think that's a very important thing to understand about depression. It's that it can take a lot of different forms. Depression is more like I don't remember where I read that, but I heard somewhere that someone tried to describe it like describing cancer. You can have cancer in many different parts of your body, and it can take many different kinds of treatments. And in the same way, depression can be shown in very different ways, and it can take very various ways to treat it also. And I think that metaphor might be useful to help people understand what it's actually about.
yeah, yeah. I also actually read that somewhere because I also did a paper about depression when I was in high school last year.
Mm.
My last paper of school.
Yeah.
Um, so. Uh,
Yeah. Um, yeah. So, um, as I said, I'm not able to put many of these themes and emotions into words, just like I think many others might be struggling to. And that's why I decided on making it into a game instead. And through this game, I want to give a voice to those who might not currently have the strength to speak for themselves. And so this shift in attitude from me also comes with a new will to spread the awareness of what I'm working on. And by making videos and streaming about it, I get the chance to talk and explain in a way that would have been very difficult to convey in text alone. And my hope is that this series of developer diaries will be useful for you who might be watching, and that you might even be able to perhaps learn something, I guess, about life or yeah, anything in general while being here with us.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, you could
so
also just be here to learn about game dev,
yeah,
since we're
that's fine.
yeah giving thoughts about that as well. Like it's fine, whichever.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. So yeah, I guess that kind of sums up the points I wanted to get across in this week's weekly thoughts. I think we're ready to head over to the gameplay showcase.
to the gameplay. Okay, I'm
Yep.
gonna start the game, and hopefully
Let's hope
this
it works. Cross your fingers.
this
One.
doesn't get too evil. Let's see. You should see it on stream and hear it. Hopefully now, ish.
I don't have it on stream yet, but
No,
that.
yeah, it's a
Oh,
bit.
no, it's going.
Yeah, it's a delay in stream compared to our Skype.
You actually didn't share your Skype with me.
Oh, that's true. I need to do that.
Yep.
Where?
Otherwise, all my comments are going to be delayed.
Yeah,
from the
where did I lose Skype though? Now let's set this up properly. We should have done that before actually. Okay, sorry about that. We'll fix it straight away. Share
That's fine.
screens. Start. Okay, so you see the screen now, right?
Yep,
Oh, wait. I
there
think
it
I
is.
got a bot. How do I even ignore? Oh,
Are you okay?
yeah, I think I got a bot in chat for the first time ever, and I never used the admin tools before in Twitch. I had to figure out how to do that. Sorry, and hope no one clicked the link. Um, if you did, close it quickly. Okay, so now do you want me to start the game or?
I not yet actually.
Okay,
I'd like
yeah,
to talk about the main menu just a bit before we jump into the game. So,
yep.
as you can see here, I I like it when story begins straight away. I've tried to make the storytelling as a part of every aspect of the game. And as you can see here, I've added text, just small snippets of story below every button that's tied into what the button actually does. Um, and the next thing is that the player gets to start in one of 4 different locations, this being one of them. And this is never obvious to the player until you, of course, exit the game and then start it up again. And we can show this later after we've entered the game, but
Yeah.
this is in part because I want to show as many different phases of depression as I can, I guess. I've used this way of thinking in other aspects of the game as well, which I'll probably cover in a later dev diary. But just the fact that it can start whenever, and there are many different roads that people who are depressed take. Depressed or alone or suffering from a phobia. Obviously, depression often gets center stage because that's what most people are interested to hearing about. But the game also, of course, touches on loneliness and phobia, as I mentioned before. Yeah, you can feel free to hit start.
Yeah, I just wanna before we move on, Dragutux. I'm
Yeah.
sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. Um, he says, in conclusion to my thought, I just want to say, don't propose a manual for getting out on depression as some others did. It'd be better, for example, to just tell the story and not having to complete with
Sure.
those things that you put 2 dots, objectives like go to the therapist, etc. Some games do that, and it's very, very offensive on a personal level.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense, and I'd like to touch on that actually, just
yeah,
briefly. So, this game is not meant to be played by someone who is depressed themselves. Um, I I try to make that quite clear. Um, the the game is supposed to be given to someone who is a friend or family member of someone who is depressed, and it's meant to help them understand what it's like to go through the everyday routine of someone who is suffering from these issues. So in that way, this is not by any means meant for someone um, who is suffering from any kind of mental health issues. Um, it's only meant to understand it, and of course, if you are suffering from it, then you might not need this game in the first place. Um, so yeah, I think we're ready to jump into the game.
yeah. Do you want me to turn off the sound of the game, or do you want it, or is it like low
You
enough?
you can turn it off. I actually
Yeah.
don't hear it from.
Oh, you don't hear it, cause I
I don't.
mean,
You can keep it on if you want. It's
okay,
okay.
yeah. Then I start.
Obviously, not all sound assets are implemented, so but it's okay if we can just have it on the background. So here you can see some additional story pieces, introducing some additional thoughts into the game. I'm not going to go into any part of the story or what the texts are actually saying in this dev diary. I'm going to save that for another one because I'd like to take a deep dive into that when we come to it. So here you can see a simple tutorial showing the arrows, and they'll be there until you actually click something. then it'll just disappear. So at its core, Please Knock on My Door is a management game. And I derived that from the fact that, as I said, it's all inspired from the emotions that I had myself, and where I was at the time, I had completely lost the joy, I guess, to just everyday situations and interactions. For instance, I didn't play games or watch TV because I felt that it was joyful. I did it because I needed a way to waste time. Because if I went to bed at 5 p.m., I couldn't sleep, so I needed some ways to just waste my energy before I could go to bed, and then just rinse repeat that. So I've tried to capture that by using time management and the fact that you always need to do something in order to progress the game and pass time. So, for instance, if Tobias now were to interact with the tub that he just left, he'll get an interaction menu. And here you can see the current time, 18:42, and you get a couple of different selections from what you can do with this object. Now, what you don't get is the time it takes to perform any of these things. Now, under the HUD of the game, I have, of course, selected a maximum and minimum amount of time that will be spent if you, for instance, take a long shower or if you take a quick shower. The player don't know this. This is related to the fact that in real life, you don't really think about how long you're going to be staying in the shower. Now, obviously, you can make arbitrary judgments such as, oh, I'm going to take a quick shower or I'm going to take a long shower, but you don't really think about, oh, I'm going to spend 15 minutes exactly in the shower now. And I've made the system so to reflect that, and that also makes it a lot more difficult for the player to actually plan out his mornings and evenings. So Tobias, you can actually leave this menu and just head out to the hallway instead.
Yep. Just before, I just wanted to say that because he wrote that he doesn't want to monopolize the chat because he can speak for hours about this.
Mhm.
And if you have more stuff that you feel like you don't want to talk about here, it's fine to send Mikael an email.
Yep.
I think you have your email in the contact details.
I actually don't.
Oh yeah, but you have it.
Head over to my website.
Yeah, exactly.
michaelval.com. There is a way to contact me from
Yeah,
there.
the website has the information, so you can just go there if
Yep.
you'd rather want to write an email about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, now I out in the hallway.
Cool. Yeah, so the first time you enter each room, it will give you just a short flavor text, I guess is the best way to describe it, as you just saw here. We can now head into the kitchen, which is up to the right, sorry, of course. I don't even know my own apartment. So now, for instance, if Tobias tries to cook some food.
Is that here?
Yep. You can just try preparing a meal for us. So, as I said before, each time he does this, a pseudo-random amount of time will have been spent. As you can see here, the new time popped up there. But also, the stats of the main character will change. So all of these stats, there are 5 of them in total, they are all hidden from the player. However, with every action you do, something in these stats will change. And that will then, in turn, drive what events and what texts that you get while you play. It will also, of course, drive what ending you get. So the objective of the player at this point is to get through 1 in-game week, and there will be different hurdles that will come up along the way. And aside from only spending time in the apartment, you will get to visit the main character's workplace and interact with his colleagues there. But this is also a decision by the player, because if you as the player feel like your character might be a bit down one day and you don't want to go to work, then you don't have to. However, that will also affect the stats and the mood of the main character. Yeah, right. I guess I promised to give an example, wasn't it? On something that could change through development.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. You can head over to the table and just interact with the food there.
Yep.
Now I can't
Eat.
show it. Yeah, no, you don't have to select.
Okay. No, too late. Sorry.
It's okay. We can just do something afterwards.
Yeah.
What I wanted to look at was the menu, because that menu, yeah, just head to the dish.
Yeah. Here. And
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, nice, thanks. So, these menus were not initially planned for. These are one of the reasons why I had to push the release schedule once more. Because initially, the game was supposed to decide for you what you were going to do when you interacted at each of these different interaction points, I guess you could call them. But now I decided to make it so the player gets to choose. So this gives the player a bit more freedom. As you saw before, Tobias got to choose what kind of food he wants to cook, and this of course also affects how much food the character gets to eat and how much time is spent. So, and before I had this menu, I had an entirely different UI system for all of these interaction points, and that took quite a lot of time to do, and creating this menu system took even more time. So that's what I was talking about earlier when I mentioned that sometimes features are added or just changed, and the length of the game doesn't change, but the quality of it does. And that's why I've decided to push the release dates sometimes. So yeah, the last thing I wanted to cover right now in the gameplay showcase was the different sources of inspiration that I have here. Because what you might not realize is that I have actually put down specific either items or things or just like entire layouts of rooms just to give me a reference point to the experience I had 2 years ago when I was depressed. So you can actually leave the menu now, just head over to the living room. So all of this that you see here is quite a good replica of the apartment I was living in when I was depressed. And this is not something that you know, the game never tells you that, of course. However, it gives me a solid anchor point. It gives me something to use when I need to relate to the experience that I'm trying to deliver through this game. And it gives me a way to draw inspiration from the emotions that I had at the time. So yeah, the important thing there is that since the game is always meant to be for someone else, I wouldn't add these things if I felt like they were in the way of the player experience. However, such a simple thing as perhaps the placement of the TV or the placement of the bed or just a clock or something like that, that doesn't really necessarily matter to the player, can really help me to draw inspiration when I create the game. And that was actually the last thing that I had for this gameplay showcase. If we don't have any questions that have come up in chat.
No, we got some comments. Like the same guy wrote, I used to take showers so long that I exhausted the water balloon just because the hot water felt nice and made my mood better.
Dude, that's very interesting that that's brought up here because in the next segment, the question segment, I'm going to be touching on that. So.
Yeah. Then we can see, because we have two more comments.
Okay.
One that says as well, like, I used to sit in the tub until the water went cold. That made me feel fresher and a bit better.
Sure, yeah.
And then it's everything is a fight with depression. Although a girl told me you're depressed because of the world, if you're still here, you're fighting your issues, and that alone is worth being mentioned.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting
perspective. Yeah,
perspective.
sure.
Yes, that was the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Do you want me to turn the game off? while we go
Yeah,
through the
sure. We can.
questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's go to main menu. All right. Did you want to show that we start in different locations?
Yeah, I mean it's
We
pretty
see
quick.
that
We're
here,
already in
right?
a different one, and of
Yeah.
course all of the text here in the menu are different.
Yeah.
So there are 4 different locations for you to start in, and the introduction text after you've actually started the game will of course be different to reflect that. But yeah, that's really all of the comments I had on that part.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
we can head on over
Then
to the
let's
questions.
do that, and then let's see. We got another bot. I just need to ban that. Okay, done. That's the first time I ever had bots. Okay, so we have a couple of questions here.
Yep.
I'm starting just with the first one. I'm gonna read the question and then Mikael is gonna answer it.
Yay.
So we have one from. I'm assuming these is from are from Twitter since you
Yep.
wrote at.
Yes.
So it says Nemoria Max has the first question with this. At what stage do you think about how/if you're going to sell a game like yours?
Yeah. A very good question. As I mentioned, the prototype was made purely for my own needs. I created it because I needed a way to distance myself from what was going on in my life at the time, and I made the prototype and managed to break free of my depression. Or sorry, after I made the prototype, I then left the prototype in a folder deep down in a hierarchy on my computer, as game devs tend to do when they work with prototype, and then it's lost for you to find at a later date, and that's what happened. And it wasn't until about a year later, that would be a year earlier from today, when I was looking through old games and concepts, that I found the prototype again, and the emotions that I had left a year ago at the time came rushing back while I played it. I thought to myself, if I don't make something out of this now, I might actually get to regret it for the rest of my life. And I know that sounds rather dramatic, but it's genuinely the feeling that I got at the time. And at that point, I began thinking about what a potential game made from that prototype might have to offer to a potential player. And I came to the conclusion that while being heavily based in a personal story, there still might be something there for others to connect to. And I guess initially, all I wanted was just to form a connection like that. Um, that has since evolved and changed. And now I think more about what the player will get out of the experience than what I get out of creating it. Since I began working on the project last year, I've always had the word entertainment in mind. Now, what I mean by that is not laughter and it's not fun, as you would traditionally think when you hear the word entertainment, especially when you think about games. I think, yeah, I think of it more like a drama or film, a drama in film, sorry, or a down-to-earth autobiography in books. I think the word compelling is what I'm really looking for here. Um, and I do believe that it is easier to learn while being entertained, while being compelled or enthralled by something. When I say that I want to show the player what it's like to live like I did, I say that while thinking about how to entertain the player at the same time. Um, I have done the same things with past game concepts I've worked on, and I aim to continue doing it with any contemporary issues or topics that I find interesting. I'm pretty skilled at construing game mechanics from abstract themes, and I think that as long as the player has an interest in the theme at hand, they will like the idea of a game which lets them just explore it. Uh, I think that's all of my thoughts
Yeah, I
on
mean,
that question.
it sounds good.
Yeah,
Okay, hopefully the stream is up again.
I can
So
stream here at least.
yeah, cool. Then I'll read the question again as it
Yeah.
crashed during that. At Gived asks, during the research necessary to ensure an authentic experience, did you find anything particularly interesting or important?
Yes. Yes, and I'm very happy that this question came up, and I'm very happy that some in chat mentioned water and taking hot showers earlier, because that's what I'm going to talk about now. Um, so the bad thing about this whole information thing is that I'm not great at keeping references to my sources. Um, Sometimes I just read something interesting in a magazine and make a scribble of it in my notebook. So to answer this question properly, I actually dug up a specific piece of information I came across several months ago, um, which I still find to be one of the most interesting things I've learned throughout this development time. So according to a study made by a researcher at Yale University, people who suffer from feeling alone seem prone to substitute social warmth with physical warmth. What this means is that there is a connection between how lonely someone feels and how likely this person is to, for instance, spend more time in a shower with hot water. Now, this was extremely interesting to me, as it rang so true with my own experiences of feeling lonely. I remember when I first read this, it was almost like an aha moment because I had never before connected those dots myself. I used to have times when I would sit on the floor in my shower and just wait for time to pass by, just increasing the heat over and over. And I decided to add this to the game so that the lonelier your character feels, his behavior in the shower will change to reflect that. So yeah, that's really interesting. And it's also interesting to learn that other people have had similar experiences, specifically with showering and hot water, and having feelings of like depression or loneliness. And just the fact that you substitute your social warmth, the warmth you feel from other humans, with physical warmth, the warmth you feel from a shower, uh, is just um, extremely interesting to me.
Yeah. We also got one question from chat in the
Mm-hmm.
meantime of this here. It's Dragotux. I'm still hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think that since younger generations, 15 till 25, being more emph- em-
Empathetic?
empathetic, thank you. Apparently, in this actual years, this could actually be a nice game for teens to tell them what their friends are going through.
Yep.
And then, yeah, like it's ending as a question. So,
Yeah, sure. That's definitely true.
yeah,
I mean, the reason why I am making this game is because I want to, I guess, broaden the amount of fair representation that mental health has in games. I mean, you can find tons um, of papers on this. You can find tons of books dealing with mental health and explaining it to you. But if you're not the kind of person who likes to read, if you're the kind of person who loves to play games, then you're almost out of luck. And I feel like it's very important to have these different themes and topics represented in all of our mediums so that people who prefer a specific medium can find something of value there. Um, so yeah, I agree. And of course, games is popular um, among all ages now, of course, but
yeah,
surely among teens as well.
yeah, exactly. Great. Do we want to change to the ending part maybe, and
Yeah,
you
I
talk a
think
bit about it?
yeah,
I'll just do
I
this.
think so.
So first of all, now as soon as the stream switches, you see all the contact details and ways to reach Mikael and
Yep.
look more into the game. So if you want to like discuss with him directly, you can either you know Twitter, Facebook, his personal website has an email, I
Yeah.
guess.
Oh, just a quick note. My
Yeah.
the pleaseknockgame.com site is down currently.
Okay.
It's under maintenance. Um, I am hoping to have it up in a week or so. No promises though, but that's what I'm aiming for.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess with that, we're going to end the first developer diary for Please Knock on My Door.
Yeah.
Uh, and if you came in late and missed the beginning, you don't have to worry. We've got your back. With VODs coming up on both mine and Tobias's YouTube channels this Friday.
Yep.
So now as yeah, my YouTube isn't on the screen, so you can
Oh, it
just
isn't. Oh, right, because it's not part of
that's
your.
fine.
Yeah.
My
Okay.
YouTube
is
You
a
are
lot
already
of numbers
stressing.
anyway.
Yeah,
So
yes. I'm gonna fix it for the next one. So
yeah,
you can head over to Tobias's channel. Check it out there. It's on the bottom of this
yeah,
screen.
you
You can
see it
see
here.
it.
And we're not ending the stream after this. We're gonna keep playing and
Yeah,
analyze another game
yeah.
just
It's going
for.
to be amazing. You need to
Yeah,
have that. It's going
it's
to be
gonna be. You're gonna see people getting stressed. But do you have anything you wanna like do as an ending?
yeah.
Um,
The next dev diary will be on the 28th.
mhm.
So that's 2 weeks from now. I'm planning on doing it on a regular basis every other week, every 2 weeks, just to get some additional time to keep developing the game and just come up with some interesting topics to discuss. Yeah, make sure to tune back in then for more info on how development's going.
Yeah.
And as Tobias mentioned, if you'd like to talk to me, you can find me on Twitter at GTLime or via the Facebook page named Please Knock on My Door for the same title. And thank you all for watching and have a great week.